Welcome back to the Culture Codex podcast. Today I'm joined by Samuel Grube, a progressive Democrat running for Ohio House District 18, representing communities like Shaker Heights, Cleveland Heights, East Cleveland, Orange, and Warrensville Heights. From school walkouts to community protests, he's been involved in organizing and advocacy from a very young age. He's a product of public schools, a lifelong Northeast Ohioan, and someone who's worked inside local government, gaining firsthand experience with how policy decisions affect people's daily lives. His campaign is focused on affordability, healthcare, education, and making sure that state government actually works for the people it's supposed to represent, not corporate interests or lobbyists. He's running a people-powered campaign where real change comes from the ground up, and that representation should be about service, not politics as usual. Sam, I'm really excited to talk about your path into politics, what's happening in District 18 right now, and what a new generation of leadership could look like in Ohio. So, Sam, thanks for being here, man.
Well, thank you very much. Happy to be here.
So, right off the bat, you look younger than me, which is impressive. So,
well, I appreciate it. Keeping my youth, keeping my skin.
Yeah. How old are you?
I'm 21, but I have a birthday on the 20th, so
nice.
22 coming up.
Oh, yeah. Happy birthday, man.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, good stuff. You grew up in this district, and you went to public schools. When did politics stop feeling abstract and start feeling personal for you?
I think about the time of middle school is probably where it started to kick in. I certainly, as I became older, the more I followed the news and read more studies, more analytical type things. But I remember the first big issue I was worried about, both gun control, which there was some big shootings and protests in Cleveland around middle school, high school. And I remember net neutrality being a really big one as well, as I was coming into the age of having access to the internet. And I remember a friend and I convincing the school to let us skip a class to watch a debate on net neutrality. And they were proud, and we thought we were doing something. But yeah, right around then. And then certainly through high school, I became more involved with walkouts, protests, and being aware. And then, through college, political science degree, and certainly now with the campaign, I'm about as involved as one could get, I think, at this point.
I can't think of a worse time to get into politics right now, as I'm sure you're well aware. Was there a moment where you realized that pushing from the outside wasn't enough and you needed to step inside the system?
Yeah, I think that definitely came about in the last year or so. So I officially launched my campaign in June when I announced, but for the couple of months leading up, when we were pondering this idea, my campaign manager and I, we were getting so frustrated with the federal level, with the state level, with all kinds of issues. And, after talking about it, it was just sitting here and, reading the news and yelling at each other, which wasn't doing anything. And, we could sign as many change.org petitions as we wanted. And we could say, I hate Trump and I hate the state house. But it wasn't going to make any change. And, I love where I'm from. My family's from here. I would love to stay in the great state. But if I'm not going to work to make it better, then, it's tough to be a proud Ohioan if we don't make some changes.
What did people in your life say when you told them that you were running for the state house?
Well, it's a mix of two things. It's, wow, you're young.
Yeah.
And the other one was, what's the state house?
Oh, God, really? Oh, man.
Most of my immediate family was fine, but a lot of, it's a confusion. I've had a lot of people think that it's the federal house, because I understand what Congress is, and Congress is all over the news.
Yeah.
But, that's the newest thing I put on my social media, was to hopefully stave off the asks of, what are you running for again?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Right. No, I mean, and I tell people this all the time, like, local politics is just as important, if not more important than...
Almost, especially for daily lives. And people ask, what are you doing? And it's like, well, do you drive on the road? We're doing with roads, we're doing schools. And, the Fed gets in the news because of how much they deal with foreign policy or big sweeping military bills. But if you're really concerned about the way that your local elementary school is being run, that is entirely, or almost entirely, local to state level.
Right. We're both Gen Z. We're part of a generation that grew up with school shootings.
Absolutely.
as well as climate anxiety, political instability. How does that shape the way you think about leadership today?
Well, it makes me frustrated, I think, and that there are so many things that are affecting people and their day-to-day lives that are ignored or not dealt with or politicized for gains. If we're talking about shootings, the debate over the Second Amendment is so out of touch with things that are actually happening. Like, if you can take the Constitution literally, and you don't have to be against guns well, you don't have to be pro guns to realize that we are shooting so many people and having so many deaths. And the idea that guns are making us safe, or that it's simply a people issue, it's just not the case anymore. There's so much data and so many people begging for a change.
Right.
And I don't even think you have to be, you don't have to be some far right or far left person to understand that these policies are not under control and they're not being helped and are not being fixed.
Yeah, and you have personal experience that I guess I wouldn't say like being around it, but like knowing the repercussions of gun violence in your district, because East Cleveland is in your district, and it's known for violence and guns, and
It
yeah,
is.
it's rough, man.
And I feel for them, and I feel for my own hometown too. I mean, just last year there was a shooting at the Shaker Heights library, and sometimes certain Cleveland suburbs will get reputations for either being better or worse places, but I don't know of a single place that isn't being affected anymore. And you can be the most closed, wealthy, positive neighborhood, and I think you will still see some kind of issue with guns.
Do you think the Ohio State House right now actually understands what life looks like right now for students and renters and young families that are living in those districts? Or
It's I would think they do, and I think it's an issue that they don't care, and that's not their priority. And it's tough. I used to be under the impression, and maybe this is naivete, that these people just are ignorant. They don't know, they don't understand what the issue, and the more I look into it, they absolutely know, and they are absolutely choosing to do nothing about it. And it's a whole, it's a culture war, and it's a sticking issue. And instead of fighting for the people to protect our guns, protect our schools, we're fighting for tax breaks for the rich, for a new football stadium, and the dismantling, the DEI witch hunt at college education. I mean, there are so many policies that even if you believe that there is some DEI issue at colleges, that's not affecting the things that are in everyone's life. Even if you think that we should shut down public institutions, you can still think that guns are killing people, and that K-12 is the real issue. There are so many things that people are experiencing and witnessing that just aren't being addressed.
yeah, I remember the March for Our Lives protests. I was my family and I went to those, and I forget how old I was, but when people are actively organizing these protests, and time and time again, we see no change at all. It's almost as if our freedom of speech is just meaningless to them, and like they don't. Again, it's not representation anymore, which is sad. So,
I mean, there was an assassination attempt on the president, and even that is not enough
I know.
to, and even if you want to blame it on, like, pick an outlet. If you want to blame it on mental health, okay, let's invest in clinics. If you want to blame it on broken homes, okay, let's invest in the schools. You could pick any number of policy prescriptions, and they won't choose any of them.
I can't remember what your district looks like, but is District 18 heavily gerrymandered?
Yes,
Yeah.
if I am not mistaken, is the most Democratic House seat in the state. It's
Gotcha.
Went something like 92% Democrat, 93%.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
Which, I mean, so you would think, well, it's a safe Dem seat, so
Right.
why are we even doing this? But you can see even across Democrats, there are Democrats that are far too centrist, in my opinion, or not doing anything, and it's still something to fight for.
Yeah, absolutely. And and again, I talk to a lot of people from the quote unquote establishment, and I want to reiterate that some of these guys are overall decent people,
Of course.
but I feel like a lot of them are sort of disconnected with the the rise of fascism and authoritarianism. I'm sure they recognize it, but I don't think they have the memories of what their grandparents went through during World War II, and if their family came from Poland, or they were Jewish, or whatever. They don't. I feel like a lot of them, they don't really remember or have any correlation between America is sort of similar to what we saw in the 1930s Nazi regime. So and
We've gotten too comfortable.
we have.
We've gotten too comfortable. And
Yes.
that goes for other things too. I mean, you see this pushback against vaccines and science. You see, with the idea that we're the richest and we're the best, and it's so bad elsewhere that we must be doing something right. And, maybe there's some gun deaths, but if we take away the guns, then we're a fascist state. And it isn't just that black and white. It isn't just that. Like that in itself is an authoritarian argument, and
Right. Yeah.
there can be no compromise, because any compromise is an infringement on my own personal rights. And
Shit, man. Yeah, it's it doesn't matter what even some decent Democrats do. The right will always spew it as like some infringement.
exactly, the Civil War with states' rights.
Yeah, and
I
I'm always like, and nowadays I'm like, dude, where are the don't tread on me people? Like this is your time, guys. Where the fuck are you?
it's crazy if someone had if George Bush had gone and said these things,
Yeah.
totally different. If you go back, I mean, imagine Reagan saying some of these things. Like, it would be absolutely crazy. It's a different time.
I know, man.
It's a different time.
I know it's a wonderful introduction for you into the world of the American politics. Dude.
Absolutely. Good morning,
God.
world.
Yeah, I know, right? Oh my God, like I can't even imagine. Like starting a campaign in
It's
this
hopeful.
environment.
It gives me hope, and
all we
I
got.
wake up I wake up and I feel I'm actually doing something, which I could make a difference.
Damn right.
That's that's part of it. And maybe that's me being too positive. I truly have hope. I truly don't think we're too far gone.
That's good. Well, my following question was actually about the midterms, and I know you're running on the state legislature, but do you worry about election interference or the I wouldn't say like I'm not going to use the term like rigging outright, but I don't know, man. We're seeing the patterns, right? They're building all of these detention centers straight up from the Nazi playbook, right? And I just don't see these people going, hey, you know what? We're gonna just let the American democracy work its way, and like hopefully we'll like they won't. Obviously, they won't do that. So
I mean, that's one of my biggest concerns is the new push for the what is it, the Save America?
Yeah, Save Act,
Save Act. I mean, and let's be honest, it will stop minorities. It'll stop people with name changes, which means women who get married. It's protecting white men, which especially rich white men. Can you afford a passport? Can you afford a driver's license? Like these are just. I mean, this is poll tax. It's poll tax and literacy test and all this stuff again. So that absolutely concerns me. Now, I'm usually not a states' right argument guy, but I do like that most elections are run at the state level. And I like that there is a lot of local autonomy there. Now, I am fully aware the Fed would like to meddle in that and would love to take that control back. At least for the current midterms, I'm not too worried yet. But I think we're both aware that it's coming down the pipeline, and that, I mean, 2016 election, 2020 election. I mean, we've seen this happen repeatedly.
Right. I mean,
Like if you look at the meddling with, I don't know, a big one, Eric Adams in New York, for 100% meddled him.
Oh yeah, 100%.
I mean, it's not even quiet meddling.
No, he's like, it's unbelievable how Eric Adams is just like very, very open about him being corrupt. He's like, yo, I'm corrupt.
Yeah.
And I'm going to start a crypto and scam you.
Yeah.
Because he doesn't
for the
care.
people, for the people.
He doesn't care. Yeah. This crypto is for the people. And I'm like, well, what the fuck, dude? You know?
No. So, I mean, I'm not too worried about my local state house election. I'm very worried about federal elections.
Gotcha. Makes sense. Yeah.
You know, in the state house, I would do my very best to stop the local meddling, which I don't think we're quite there yet, but especially protect Ohio's electoral system and that, both for Congress, Senate, president votes, all these things to stop the Fed from trying to interfere in something it has no business interfering in.
Yeah, next we can go over education and the affordability crisis. Ohio's getting hit hard, especially with our farmers.
It is.
Yeah, I mean, with these tariffs, they're not buying our soybeans.
No.
Farmers are getting skinned alive right now, which sucks. At the state level, what levers actually exist to make life more affordable for people right now?
So there are some certain policies that are in place, and there are some things the state could do. So we already have an organization within the state that handles housing that we could increase the funding for, that can provide more affordable housing. That's something that already exists. There are, state incentives for farming, and if we're going to stick on farming, the state can do its own subsidies or protections, restrictions for farmers, depending on if that's specifically what we want to focus on. As much as I'd love healthcare to be, single payer national level, currently Medicare, Medicaid is mostly done at the state level. So we can absolutely figure out healthcare funding. There are all kinds of things that can certainly be done. It's tough for a lot of overarching policies that people think of. Like the state does not control interstate or foreign commerce. So the federal administration placing tariffs on the farmers, there's nothing the state can do to stop us tariffing Australia beef and Argentina. Like there's nothing we can do to stop that, but we can protect our own, and we can do our very best to weather whatever anyone else throws at us. And I think it starts with that local change. I mean, if we support our citizens and we educate our citizens and we make their lives better, then we can become more involved and proactive in other things.
Just basic expenses, they just keep rising.
Absolutely.
And at least from the people that you've talked to, what's the number one thing that they bring up?
Probably, my district, probably either housing or food with groceries, I think is pretty big.
Yeah.
I think those two are especially hitting hard. I would say healthcare comes in second, but I don't think as many people realize that as much as they realize their immediate bills. And that if you're going to stop paying a bill, you can, as long as you're relatively healthy, you can stop your healthcare premium and you'll be okay. But if you stop buying groceries, you're going to starve. And so that one, that's an immediate week to week. Then housing, you hit your month to month. And so I think those two are certainly catching up with people. And, we had that huge scare with SNAP benefits being cut.
Yeah.
And that, would have really harmed our district, especially East Cleveland. I mean, they would have been hit very hard, but all throughout our district. I mean, the Heights get a lot of compliments for looking beautiful and having beautiful neighborhoods, but there are disadvantaged people in all our neighborhoods, and there are so many of them not being taken care of. In our Cleveland winters, it is freezing.
Oh yeah.
With no shelter, what are you going to do?
Exactly. Yeah. What does it mean to make education more accessible, not just rhetorically, but materially as well?
I think, I love that public schools are there. What we are doing is not giving them enough money, and we are not giving them enough. We're not giving them the power to do what they really should be able to do. And one of the biggest issues in Ohio is school vouchers, which are absolutely, they are taking money. It's as simple as this. They're taking money from poor people to give to rich people to take to private religious schools. And it's that simple. And, you can argue that, maybe, if you want to go down the route of, well, we all pay the tax and I should be able to spend my money where I want. No, this is not how a society works. If you make more, you should pay more money. And I'm not, if you want to open your private school and do that, I have no issue with that. If you want to send your kid to a private school, great. But you're not going to have other students pay for it. And with the school vouchers, even if you think that it's just your money, it's not. It's about 1.5. So if you take a voucher, if you remove your tax funding from the school, you're actually taking a part of another student's money as well. And so it's not even just a one-to-one. If you think that there should be a separation of church and state, why is the state sending money to religious Catholic schools? If you think there should be an income cap, why can Les Wexner qualify for the voucher? Like, what are we doing? The majority of these kids have never stepped foot in a public school. You don't have to. You can just take your money out and you can use that to send straight to the private school, which is, it's destroying us. We saw an article come out, I think it was a year ago or so, about public schools having to pay for busing for private schools.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Wow.
It's absurd. Why? There is no reason that this should be the case. It's just harming our public school kids.
Yeah.
And then you have attacks from other Ohio candidates like Vivek Ramaswamy claiming that teachers' unions are what's ruining us.
Oh, yeah.
Which is absurd. You can have your issues with the unions, but if you don't think they're fighting for the teachers, have you ever talked to a teacher before?
Yeah, exactly. Right. The thing about Vivek is, I know he was on like a couple of different podcasts. He will certainly never be on this one. But like the thing is with him is he's been outspoken about abolishing unions, and people don't realize how detrimental it is and frankly anti-democratic that is to just go out and say, teachers unions should not exist. Like what the hell, man?
Again, you can certainly have issues with certain things unions have fought for. I think one of the biggest things people go for is the police, and that the unions have certainly protected officers that should not have been protected. But on the other hand, unions have brought you, your 40-hour work week. They've banned child labor. They've done all these great things. And if you believe that companies are going to treat their workers fairly, then, well, first of all, you're wrong. Second of all, yeah. Sorry, exactly. First of all, you're wrong.
No, yeah,
second of all,
100%. Yeah,
if you look at
bottom line,
if you look at what these people are fighting for, all they're doing is fighting for be paid equally, to have health care. And, if you want to remove the unions, then have the government fight for those people. Mandate that these people get paid something fair. And I will support you on that. If you want to mandate a wage that supports people, and you want to mandate all people get health care, and you want to mandate that workers can't be discriminated against or fired, and you are able to implement these policies, great. But I have not seen that happen. And the unions are doing a much better job than at least our state government is currently. And so
certainly,
yeah. That's where we're at.
Well, I know a couple of union leaders in Central Ohio that I talk to regularly, and I've asked them plenty of times, well, what's the biggest threat towards you guys right now? And every one of them said Vivek Ramaswamy.
I absolutely agree with them.
Especially AFSCME, our Council 8 here in Worthington, like Central Ohio.
My grandma, that's why she's able to retire. She has a pension.
Yes.
Same
with my grandparents.
Yeah, she was never going to be a millionaire. The teachers were never going to get paid that much, but she was able to have a pension, able to get health care, able to provide for her family. I wouldn't be here if she wasn't able to raise my mother. That's the union's work. That wasn't the state taking care of them. That was the unions fighting to protect their workers.
We forgot what those memories are because the union membership rate just keeps tanking and tanking. But luckily, I feel like with people around our age, we are starting to realize like, oh, this like crazy, weird Uber capitalism slash techno fascism, I guess. I'm gonna call it that.
I don't disagree with you.
Yeah, it's fucking weird shit. Yeah, I mean, this simply isn't sustainable.
No,
It will collapse eventually.
absolutely.
So
No, and I think that's one of the things that Gen Z gets a terrible reputation for, is that people think that we're all, we're lazy, we're not working for it. We're, all we expect is to live in a huge house and make all this money. I don't hear any of the people I talk to saying, the only thing I care about is being a millionaire. I want to be a millionaire. I want to start my own tech company, and I want to sell a bunch of data to the government.
no, yeah, same. I don't know anybody that's
I have people asking, they want to be able to own a house at some point.
right.
I know. They want to be able to have
Can we
kids.
please own like one home or a condo?
Even I'm so worried about when I turn 26, how am I going to afford healthcare? And this is the crazy thing. Looking at what state representatives gets, insanely affordable health insurance done by the state for state employees. Imagine if we were able to do that for more people in the state. If we can provide it for our own, and I would be so lucky and grateful to have some kind of healthcare like that. But the fact that we aren't doing that for everyone else,
It's third world.
At this point, we fund the healthcare in other countries. We send money to fund like African healthcare systems. And I'm very for giving everyone healthcare. I'm not against USAID or anything.
Healthcare's a right. Yeah,
Hell,
we
absolutely.
preaching to the choir there.
Can
but
we
yeah.
do that for our own citizens as
Yes,
well?
yeah, exactly. Yeah, right. Yeah. What surprised you most when you saw how decisions actually get made on the inside?
Well, I think this was something when I worked for the mayor of Shaker Heights. One of the things I realized was how effective and how I'll say powerful the local government is, and that the things that they have control over, they are very easily able to effectuate and take action and change these things. And now I'm lucky to live in a city which I think has a functioning, funded government, and that we're able to pay for our roads to be fixed and that kind of stuff. But there was so much, there was no meeting that I went into that there was culture war and slurs and insults and fascism. It was, here's a problem, we have potholes. How can we do this? It was, there was a burst pipe, and, we need to get a quote on this, and we need to send it out, and this family needs to be put somewhere for a time being. And these things, it was actually taking care of citizens. And, was there disagreement on how to do this? Yes. Were there some people that wanted more or less taxes? Of course. But these weren't personal attacks. These weren't, well, if you're not going to go with my policy, then I'm going to make sure that none of the pavement machines work. Like there weren't these, manufactured hostage crises. And, it made me realize that, first of all, local government is effective and important, and that maybe this is where we actually need to start. And that, would being a governor be cool? Sure. But if I want to effectuate actual change and help people and make policies that improve the lives of people in my district, it needs to be more local. And going straight to the federal level is not going to change how my neighborhood block exists, and that's something I definitely realized there.
You've said this plenty of times, but you said you won't take money from corporate lobbyists or big business.
Corporate PACs, nothing of the sort.
Why was that important to you from the start?
It would first, personally, it would make me feel gross and disgusting. But, on a higher level, it's all just influence from people that don't have citizens' best interests in what world is some big lobbying firm going to know what the citizens of District 18 want? And it's influential at even the local and state level. I mean, looking across candidates taking money from, you see corporate PACs, you see like Home Depot, Lowe's, you see, insurance companies, you see car dealerships, and then you even see big tobacco. And you see people and I guess this is a stereotype. I in my youth and innocence, I thought, no Democrat would take big tobacco money. Absolutely not. They still do. What are we doing?
Citizens United killed us, dude.
Exactly. And the scary part is that it's effective and that it works. Maybe 3 years ago, I worked for a really cool organization called Honesty for Ohio Education. I don't know if you've heard of it, but one of my things was tracking local school board races and it was looking at candidates that either didn't win or we had flagged as being very dangerous, whether that be their extremely right wing or some kind of abolishing. And one of the parts of that was looking at where they were getting their money from. And the fact that these corporate entities and even statewide, like you would see Bernie Moreno, you would see these statewide federal people getting involved at that local of a race. These, under 1,000 vote school board races. You would have these huge influences. So if you think that it's not doing anything, and you would have to be crazy to not think that these corporations are gaining influence from this. Like, they're not stupid. They're not just throwing thousands of dollars because they love Chardon schools. It is
right.
Buying influence from the ground up, influence the students, influence the parents, and it is all through up to the higher level. And it's corruption. It's corruption.
It is. And like you just said, it works.
They wouldn't be doing it if it didn't work. Like, their one and only goal is profit. And and I don't disagree that that's what a business, like, in essence, should a business try and make profit? Yes. That should never come at the expense of people. But these business people are looking for a way to extract money, and they have found that pumping money into local races and federal races, for that matter, gives them more money. And to me, that's corruption. And maybe it's benevolent once in a while. Maybe it's for a good cause, but 99% of the time it's not. And that's, I can't stomach that.
Yeah, me neither. What would a people-powered legislature actually look like in practice?
Well, and this is a controversial idea, but I could see a world in which the government provides some of the funding for campaigns, and it would be some kind of minimum system in which you'd have to raise, for the state house race, you'd raise $10,000, $20,000 on your own, and if you raise that much, then maybe you get some kind of benefit as well. I understand how expensive these races get. I mean, the presidential race is billions of dollars, which is a whole other topic. Right. But
unimaginable amount of money.
By banning corporate influence, even if that is the only step you take, you can protect so much more citizens' interests. You can make people not beholden to some corporation whose sole purpose is to extract from the population. I mean, whether it's a good or bad corporation is up for debate, but maybe you like one because they provide clean water or something, but big oil is just as much in the lobbying as everyone else. So
yeah, no, exactly. Yeah, good point. Like I don't think we'll get anywhere if we have a good midterm elections on the federal level and on the state level. Say everything works out in favor of us. If we don't focus on Citizens United, you might as well bury us.
Absolutely. I mean, for myself, raising money, it's a challenge. You have to put yourself out there. But what I've learned is people want to talk and they want to hear an idea. They want to know what they're supporting. There's not someone I've met that they don't even like. They don't want. There's no one that's. I don't want to hear your name. I don't want to hear any policy. Here's $1,000. That just doesn't happen. That doesn't happen. And certain people care about certain things. There are some people that really care about the environment. There's some people that really care about healthcare, and they might not have more than 2 minutes to speak to you. You have to earn their money, and you have to tell them, I'm running for this. This is why I'm running. This is what I would use the money for, instead of taking a $10,000 check from some big corporation and, the clear expectation is that you're going to go pass some bill to benefit them. And I don't see them, I don't see the big corporations giving money to have you send money to build preschools. Like I've never once seen that happen.
What responsibility do state lawmakers have to protect rights even when it's politically risky?
That is your job. That's your job. This is what I tell people. Like I'm not going to go into the state house and I hate everyone and you're all crazy. But there are certain things that I would never compromise on. There's no quid pro quo deal where I agree to sacrifice some of my morals in order to get something done. That's just not okay with me, and it shouldn't be okay with anyone else. And if you want to tell people your platform, and if you want to run on some idea everyone thinks is radical, you can do that, but then stick to it. There should be none of this wishy-washy backroom dealing. I'll sell out anyone to keep power. It's so nasty in politics.
How do you respond to people who feel like their vote doesn't really matter anymore?
I understand why people would be apathetic. I understand why people are frustrated, but that is the tool. And, it might be a broken shovel, but it's the only shovel you have.
Yeah.
And the only way to make any change in this country, we're talking about protesting. Protesting's great. But if you don't also go vote, there's no chance. Now, there are things you can do that are more than that, which I would absolutely encourage people to do. Run for office, volunteer your time, run a voter campaign, raise money, do canvass, knock doors. There are so many ways to get more involved. But if you do not exercise your right to vote, you are not exercising change. And, the only way to change these policies would be to vote against them. By saying, I'm not going to vote because it doesn't matter, you're accepting what's coming.
Yeah, it's a very defeatist attitude.
It is. And again, I understand the feeling, and I've felt that way. I've felt my vote doesn't matter.
Of course, yeah.
I sat watching Trump's reelection in complete, devastation and shock.
Oh, yeah.
But not voting against him is so much worse choosing not to vote at all is so much worse than at least choosing to vote against him. It's the only way. There's no protest that leads to a action. The more you look at it, the more you just see the path that we're going down.
Yes.
And you've brought up Nazi Germany, and it sure looks a lot like that.
Even the Germans are saying that themselves in Europe right now. I've seen articles in Germany that are literally saying our ICE officers look like people wearing SS uniforms.
I mean, it's masks
Germans
and weapons, and
the German people are saying this.
And we want to make you have to carry your papers and identify yourself, and I don't have to do that. And I'm going to go put you in a camp. And I want territorial expansion, so I'm going to threaten all my neighbors. And it's baby steps. And we're still voting. We're not beer hall putsch executing people yet. But except for these citizens, except for the citizens, so I guess we are there. But there's still time to go back. We can still vote. Everyone can still vote as it is, and we need to do that before they take that away. And with all these, the more you hear and listen from the Fed, from state level, they don't want to keep it that way. We need to stop them before that happens. And saying it's already foregone is not the way to make that happen.
To wrap up here, looking ahead on your campaign, when you win, what's one issue you'd want to start working on immediately, and why?
Well, going back to things that really affect my district, I have a housing bill to ban corporate housing and push for more affordable housing. We're already in the works on that. Working to protect Medicare, Medicaid would be a big move. And, looking at things that are accomplishable. Obviously, if we get I'm certain that we will not be the super minority anymore after this, which was great. But if we get a blue governor like an Amy Acton, that makes it a lot more viable. If we don't, we would need to stay more on bipartisan terms, at least for the first term, which means, so corporate housing, I think, would be a great one. I think building more rail and public transportation is possible.
Damn right.
Even if it's not bullet train high-speed rail, which is so cool, by the way. But even if it's just light commuter rail, I think it's possible. It's,
of course.
Both for commerce and trading and transportation. And then I think protecting, I think we could do some moves. I would love to push for protecting civil rights, and I would love to push for education. I was impressed that I think it was a year ago when the last 2-year budget passed that the schools were increased in funding and that wasn't immediately slashed, which I think is good. I think the next step would be banning vouchers. I love that there's court cases against it, but I think we need to codify it at the state level. And I think that could be a bipartisan push as well. So I think, pipe dream would be universal health care. I think that's better at the Fed level. But some very liberal progressive policies, I think, would require more of us in the state house, which means, govern that. But on the bipartisan level, housing, transportation, I think those are certainly doable.
Lastly, when the political noise gets overwhelming, and it's overwhelming for all of us right now, what keeps you grounded, especially as you continue onward with this campaign?
I think always meeting constituents is great. Shaking people's hands, hearing what they care about and talking to them. Hearing good. There's always a couple of good stories on the news. I love seeing movement from other campaigns and candidacies. And then really working on the campaign in and of itself is really revitalizing, and that it's actually making it's a move to make a difference. And that, I really am doing something, and that I love going to the protests too, and I love meeting people. I think that's a great step. But with the campaign, I can put my ideas out there. I can spread the word. I can push to actually make a change. And doing something like that, I think, is, keeps me grounded, that I'm not just sitting around doing nothing. I'm not just a bystander, arms up in the air, it's already over and none of us can do anything about that. And I think this is a really good way for me to channel my energy.
Sam, I appreciate you taking the time to drive here yet again. Another candidate driving like 2 or 3 hours on the show, which, is very, very humbling for me. And I appreciate you sitting down. It's always great to, have people in person. So
yeah, I appreciate you inviting me and taking the time. It's a great state. It's good to stop by the State House, see what's going on.
Yeah, right.
And check out what could be in store.
Totally, man. But Sam, seriously, thank you so much. And you're welcome back anytime, man.
Thank you very much.
Cheers.